News Radio 700 WLW.
That particular group, the group born between 1997 and 2012, does not know, nor does it want to know, how to use a telephone. In fact, just be around somebody from that age group and see how they behave if their phone rings. They don't pick it up. You know, the line may be, well, if it's important, they'll leave a message. But it's also the way they view what a phone is anymore. You know, in the bad old days, there were no mobile phones. There was no texting. Phone rang, you had to pick it up. Hey, yeah, what do you want? Now, of course, there's texting, and somebody calls, and they leave a message. But there is this telephobia that seems to be a problem with Gen Z. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why. They exist in their communication skills in 280 characters. But now, believe it or not, there are companies that are hiring people who come in and teach employees, Gen Zers, how to use a telephone, how to answer a telephone. I know, it's just the concept to me is just crazy. But I thought, how difficult can it be? And how intimidating is a phone? You know, the phone rings. You pick it up, you say hi. It's apparently not that easy. There's a workplace expert by the name of David C. Olcott. And I stumbled upon him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know, if I ever have a chance, I'm going to get him on the show. And I've asked him to join me today to talk about this phone call anxiety and how to overcome it, and why this thing is not just, you know, let's go grow up, snowflake, and answer the phone. It's much different than that, because it's the way this generation was raised and how they view communications. But you get to the workplace, and it may not fit in with what that company is trying to do. Anyway, I said, David Olcott is a workplace expert. He is the CEO of a company called Samurai Success. And I was reading, I think it was in Business Insider, about Samurai Success and what it does and how it consults, not just about this, but about a lot of ways so that things work a little less strenuous and a little more seamless when it comes to business. But the telephobia was the hook for me. I asked him to join me, and my gosh, he has done that right now. Let's go on to line 4 is where David is tonight. And David Olcott, how are you on this glorious day?
Ken, I'm doing very wonderful, and thank you for having me on the show.
I'm glad you're here. What is it about the under 40 crowd and telephones and the inability to speak into one as opposed to whip their thumbs around a keyboard on one of these things? What's going on here?
So it's interesting because what we really do isn't study generations, if you will. We actually study human behavior and what makes us do what we do. And the new gen is just very much like us in this way. You've heard the old adage, practice makes perfect.
Yep.
Well, what if I said to you, practice actually makes permanent? And all of a sudden, things start to make sense, because if I practice texting, emails, doing these things all day long, then I'm going to be really good at them. I'm going to be skill set with those. But when I don't practice face-to-face communications, taking phone calls, making those phone calls, it affects my confidence, and fear rushes in to fill the gap.
But I have actually heard stories, and again, this is anecdotal, this is not some scientific research, that when a cell phone rings, a Gen Zer panics and they don't know what to do, or they'll let it go to voicemail because they don't want to interact voice to voice. So to go back to what you just said, if you are constantly doing that particular discipline when it comes to a communication device, chances are you'll be more comfortable with it because you've perfected it. Am I right here?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, this actually is a lot of research going back to what's called Pavlov's dog, right? The bell ringing and the dog would start salivating if it was trained to do certain things. We have a lot of similar characteristics when it comes to our behaviors and our training when it comes to animals, because we have a big part of our brain that's an animal. And so when you have that noise that happens, then all of a sudden you're like, you don't have the confidence. Every single time you hear the noise, your confidence is affected because we haven't practiced enough around it.
Huh. So then, you get these younger folks. They go through the education process, high school into college. Maybe they get out of college when they're 22. Maybe they are looking for work. Hopefully, they're looking for work, and they stumble upon some employer that has a bit of an interest in them. Would it not make sense that the employer, who the hiring that's done by the employer, generally speaking, is done by older people in different generations? Would it not behoove the younger folks to learn exactly how to use a telephone?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's an essential skill set still in our humanity, if you will. AI hasn't taken it over. Quantum mechanics or machinery hasn't taken it over. So this is a skill set for at least the next 20 years, us and our ability to communicate with each other. Interestingly enough, when it comes to those machines, we actually have to communicate effectively with them by asking queuing questions. If you don't have that ability, you're really going to suffer in the workplace. So absolutely agree with you. And this is the tough part of the conversation. CEOs and owners of businesses are already making such a huge investment. I know I'm a small, medium-sized business owner. I coach people like this every single day, but we can't keep working off the old models, the old patterns. They just don't work anymore. We're going to have to step up our game. I know that's hard to hear, that we've got to start training those folks or having an opportunity to train those folks by those older folks that are really skilled in this skill set.
And answering a telephone?
And answering a telephone, actually role-playing, taking phone calls in that sales situation, how to deal with this, creating a script, also being able to get off that script, because the secret of sales is once I have the script, I have to be able to listen to what the other person is saying. And that's the real challenge, is that when you've isolated yourself for years and years and you've been working on your computer and you're texting, you don't have those natural cues that you and I have developed because we've been socialized to do that. We've practiced to do that. They're missing that skill set.
David, that's about as sad a thing as I've heard today. You've got to teach someone how to use a telephone. And again, I'm not being judgmental about a particular generation. And I try hard to understand this because a lot of what we learned when we were growing up, in other words, telephone skills, comportment on the telephone, how to handle the telephone, well, it was all social. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have X. We didn't have any of these social media platforms. And so if you wanted to communicate, in the case of a guy with a girl, you actually had to pick up the phone and call, and you had to develop those skills so that you might have a chance to do something with somebody else on a Friday night as opposed to sitting in your room and watching reruns of Gilligan's Island. So, I mean, there was a social aspect that helped you with what you would need to do later on in life with the phone. And I understand a lot of these younger kids don't have that. But think about what you just said and how sad that is. I mean, boy, that gives me cause to pause and say, where are we going here as a society?
Well, interestingly enough, let's talk about that dating scene. Remember, not only have we not encouraged people through, our kids through motivation to be able to be better on the phone, which is an essential skill set, or communication 101, we've developed apps that help you date people. Yeah. So you're not even actually doing the things that you and I had to grow up, and we were very motivated to learn those skill sets. If those things are then handed to you, that just says, hey, let this app take care of it for you, you never develop that skill set. That's
just staggering. And again, I can't lay it all on the generation, this Gen Z generation, because let's face it, if we had these things at our fingertips when we were growing up in the bad old days, maybe we would do the same thing as well. I don't know.
We would have absolutely done the same thing because we're human beings. Yeah. I mean, I know we're separated by this age thing and everything else, but I will tell you, we're conditioned to be able to do certain things, but we got to step outside of that. And here's the good news about this. And so maybe we can take some of the sadness away. Remember, during the 1960s, I grew up during that time, and I will tell you that we were having a revolution during that time. People were protesting in mobs and masses, and people were really upset. Guess where those same people are today that were out there protesting? There are Supreme Court justices. There are legislators. These people are in high command of this country right now, and that's going to continue.
Right. No, understand. Look, I'm sure some of the folks that are struggling to use the phone, telephone phobia, whatever it may be, I'm sure those people are going to grow up and they're going to be dynamic, some of them anyway, and they're going to do the great things that the people from our generation did as well. It will be in a different way of communicating. But it's still in all, It's not Supreme Court justices I'm worried about. I'm worried about Joe, who runs a business down on the corner that's got to sell widgets. And if he's got some snowflake that's 28, 29 years old that can't communicate on the telephone, guess what? Joe's not going to sell a lot of widgets. And I think, there could be a problem in this country, not just with communication, telephone as opposed to text and whatnot, but just how the business is conducted in this country. At the end of the day, we make things. At the end of the day, we sell things. That's what makes our country go. And if we can't sell things that we make, then all of a sudden we got a problem here. And I guess that's the area I'm worried about here, David.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's exactly why our company was designed, so that we could help people train these skill sets back into the business side, because we are missing that element. And you're absolutely right. And to even go even further, remember, the people who are driving, artificial intelligence and things like this, business machinery, are the business owners today, because they're seeing the lack of interest and motivation from the labor force to be able to do the tasks that are necessary. Okay,
so what does your company do? You say you try and help people that aren't used to using them. I'm sure it's more in-depth what you do, but you help people who are not used to using the phone to actually talk into the phone. And I'm sure there are programs. What do one of those programs look like?
So one of those programs is really what we call executive coaching, where we sit down with a business owner and we actually create a structure of tiered, organized training to be able to bring their labor force up to speed, if you will, within the company. And I will tell you, there's a fascinating thing that we do here that's very unique in the coaching industry, because we focus on psychology, and we also focus on design work, which is building your business processes and models, but we also have the financial component. So when you typically hire a coach, you hire a psychologist or someone to help you, with the headspace, if you will. Mm-hmm. We do those other two elements to support that headspace, so that you can actually see that your ideas are making sense and helping you become profitable.
My guess then would be that although it might be geared to a specific age group, there's probably benefits to someone that's older too, maybe a boomer or maybe a millennial or somebody like that needs to sharpen up skills as well. I guess what I'm saying is, even though it's probably some sort of invasive, let's get to it, let's write down, let's get in there right now. What do they call it when you sit everybody gets in a room, they sit down and they tell somebody they got a drinking problem and we're getting you out of the room? Now, I'm sure there's that going on with the younger set, but with the older set, it's probably like, we could probably brush up on this as well.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that intervention strategy, right, which is usually hostile.
Right.
Coaching is very much that, without the hostility and judgment. So, hey, you really do want to make a difference. We can help you get that, because we have technologies about how people actually work, not how we think they work, but how you actually work. And you work on you. That's the most important thing, because once you have a good sense of who you are and what the confidence you bring to the table, you can master almost any capability that you want.
And so your company is Samurai Success, which I guess this is only one small part of it, right?
Yes, it is.
So you'll go into like a company like what we have here in Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble, Kroger, or whatever, and if they've got some sort of deficiency, something that's hurting their productivity, you go in there and you kind of look around, see what's going on, and say, okay, here's how we attack the problem, right?
As a matter of fact, we go in and actually sit down with your people and we learn from them. It's something we call teach, train, and transfer. You are masters of your universe of what you do. I don't care how many years of consulting or coaching that I have. I don't know your business. So we come in and we discover what works for you, and then we map it out. So everybody is literally kind of on the same page. There's no questions. There's no deletion, distortion, or generalization. People know exactly what to do. So we write it out with them, and then we start coaching from that position.
I'm the master of my own universe. Didn't Jerry Seinfeld do a whole episode on that? Was that it?
Yes.
Do I have the words mixed up there?
I don't think what you're saying is what you think it means. Yes.
Okay. Just checking there. David, do you have great faith in the under 40 crowd? The folks that were born between 1997 and 2012. Do you have faith that the way they go about their lives, which I think is of some sort of either amusement or consternation to the over 50 crowd? Do you have faith in that group, or is it something you think needs a lot of work?
I think it's a little bit of both. I absolutely have faith that God makes perfect things. So we are in a situation where it's like, okay, how do we solve this issue with the resources we have? And I will tell you, as I look into the future and watch this whole idea around AI and quantum computing, guess who is best suited for that? the newer generation. They're so suited. They are so good and intimate with complexities of technology where I really struggle with that personally. They have a gift around that. It's like as if they almost see it coming down the road and they're getting prepared now. So I have great faith in what we're doing with that. But I also agree that it's going to take some training to be able to catch up to this labor force, to be able to really take advantage and be resourceful with them.
David C. Olcott, his book is Swords of Illumination, and you can find him at samuraisuccess.com. Good stuff. I have more faith now in the generation that have come after me after this short time we've spent together. David, stay well. I'm going to dial you up again, I'm sure. We need to hear your voice. Thanks.
Sounds good, Ken. Thanks so much.